What's up, guys? Welcome to Among the Fence, my YouTube channel where I do music reviews. My name is Aaron, and today I decided I wanted to try something a little different. Gonna try a new segment and see if you guys like it. Might stick around. I might try and do different things with it. And as the title suggests, I'm gonna be picking the top 10 metalcore albums between the year 2000 and 2009. But it's a lot harder than that. There's some rules I'm giving myself where I can't repeat bands, and I have to pick one album from each year. So I got to pick the best album, or actually, this is more of an influential kind of thing. My favorite albums. These aren't like the best albums between the years. This is more of like the albums that affected me the most and influenced me the most. So this isn't saying like these are the best albums for those years. And since I can't repeat bands, I can't just roll through like the best years of Killswitch Engage, As I Lie Dying, and August Burns Red, and like, I don't know, Converge or Underoath, and just wash my hands clean and be like, there, it's done. If I pick one band in 2002 and they came out with an awesome album in 2007, I can't pick that album. And that's what made this so difficult, because again, I had to go purely off of what was the best to me. And this isn't so much of like, this is the best album that came out in this year. Like I said, it's going to be more of like what I was listening to in this year and what impacted me the most, specifically in this time of year where I was like kind of growing up and discovering metalcore. Starting off with the year 2000, this one was kind of easy because I didn't really get out that much. I was only 12 years old. I was discovering music. I was listening to maybe Rage Against the Machine, System of a Down. I hadn't discovered like Eminem yet, or it was mostly like Pink Floyd and The Doors and bands like that, Matchbox 20 and Bare Naked Ladies. So I was starting to kind of discover metal. My brother was listening to Korn, so I was like, what the heck it sounds way different than my Bare Naked Ladies album. I have no clue what this is. So the album that I discovered, because I also wasn't really allowed to listen to anything with parental advisory back then, was Zao, Te Ex Infernis. I believe that's how it's pronounced. This was a Christian band, so of course, like, there's no parental advisory on it. It just sounds like it should be, especially to people that were like that young. But this album kind of blew my mind a little bit, just because I hadn't heard anything like this before in my entire life. But I gotta admit, it wasn't like anything that really hooked me. I wasn't really that into the genre after this. I just figured it was, I didn't really understand genres. I just figured it was just some kind of weird metal band. And this is gonna progressively get harder for me as it goes on, as I started to pick more and more bands. But for 2001, this one was kind of easy. Unearth, Strings of Conscience. This is one of the bands that basically started it all, and I hadn't discovered this album at this point. Actually, I didn't even discover this band until into the 2010s, late 2010s. I hadn't discovered Unearth. I've heard of them, kind of just avoided them for God knows what reason. I just never got around to listening to them. But when I finally did, this was, of course, where I started, and it made it really hard to continue listening to the rest of the albums because I was just so hooked on this one. For 2002, this is one of the hardest years because there's some fantastic albums. Killswitch Engage, Alive or Just Breathing. There's Norma Jean came out with the album, Bless the Martyr. There's also Suicide Notes, the trio album, which kind of started the whole metalcore phase, and they invented metalcore. But the one, like, I just had to be true to myself. And the one that really hooked me into this, the one that started it all, the one where I could not put the CD away and I just listened to it in my truck. I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was just so annoyed by how much I listened to this album, was Underoath's The Changing of Times. And I know I really, really screw myself by picking this album, because there's some fantastic albums that Underoath released after this, and I can't pick them again now. But like I said, this is the one. I had to be true to myself. This is the one that got me into it. From the opening little guitar riff on When the Sun Still Sleeps, and that beautiful, beautiful chorus and a message to Adrian. Every song on this album it's just so good. The Changing of Times, Angel Below, I couldn't stop listening to it. And like I said, I had to be true to myself. And this was the hardest one. Well, maybe not the hardest, but I had to realize what else I was letting go when I picked it. And that's what made it made me realize how hard this was truly going to be. For 2003, I mean, this one was a little bit easier for me to pick just because there wasn't that many releases that I really got into. Even today, when I go back and listen to it, there wasn't anything that like really hooked me or gives me that like nostalgia feeling or influenced me like all that much. I mean, As I Lay Dying came out with a great album. Between the Buried and Me released The Silent Circus, which, depending on what style of music you like for them to make, this one was either a really good album or a really sucky album. But I mean, the answer's easy, and that's Metallica's Saint Anger. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That is it. It was a joke. I'm sorry. It wasn't funny. But the real winner for 2003, it might make people equally mad when I say this, is Avenged Sevenfold's Waking the Fallen. Just because, again, that was one of the first like albums after listening to like Underoath where when I got into it and I heard like M Shadow's vocals are just so good. And that was also the first album with Sinister Gates and brought new like melodies and guitar solos to it. And I was really big into guitar solos. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a guitar player so bad, but I was into like Pink Floyd, and kind of at this time I was discovering like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani. So I was starting to like realize that there's more than just plain slow bluesy stuff. I was starting to realize there's different types of fast phrasing, and there's just endless things you could do with a guitar. And then M Shadows comes along and shows me that there's more you can do with it in metalcore as well. Even though some people would say that this isn't a metalcore album, it's still my pick, and I'm sticking to it. In 2004, this year sucked also because we have Killswitch Engage's The End of Heartache, again, Lamb of God, if you want to count them as a metalcore band, Ashes of the Wake, which is one of their best albums, just all the way through, nothing but bangers. You also have Underoath's They're Only Chasing Safety, which I realized, like I said, I can't pick them again because I already picked them for The Changing of Times. And even though, like I said, this isn't like me rating albums or anything like that, and this album is better than The Changing of Times, 100%. They're Only Chasing Safety. This is when they were just peaking. They were peaking hard, and like the future was so bright for them. But if I didn't listen to The Changing of Times, I wouldn't have listened to the rest of this. And that's why I had to pick it. Yeah, I know people are going to be mad. But the album I got to pick on this one, it's kind of a weird one. And a lot of people probably won't see this one coming. But Shadows Fall, The War Within that album, oh my God. Like, I remember playing The Light That Blinds on Guitar Hero. And just my mind was blown. Like as I was because you're paying a lot more attention to what's actually happening when you're playing Guitar Hero. And guitar-wise is fantastic. The vocals were just dirty all the way through, and the rhythm and the vocal cadence and everything in it. I could not get enough of this freaking album, and it made it even harder because I didn't even know what this band was. I didn't even know what song this album was off of. I remember going to like a Best Buy and just looking everywhere for it, and I can never find it. And then eventually I found it, and I bought it, and I couldn't quit listening to it. This is it. I know it's kind of weird, but Shadows Fall. For 2005, this one was kind of easy, and for those of you who have been watching my channel for a little while, I've talked about it a few times, and you might have picked up on the hints here and there, and you might know what I'm gonna pick. And I feel bad saying it's easy because there's some killer albums that came out in 2005, but the number one album for me, and I would even be willing to rate this as the best album of the year for me, for metalcore as well, it's got to be Trivium's Ascendancy. It's just such a killer album. And As I Lie Dying, Shadows or Security came out this year, August Burns Red Thrill Seeker, Between the Buried and Me's Alaska, which again is, that album might be just as good as Ascendancy, just in a different way. Some people consider it to be more deathcore, but I mean, whatever. But Trivium's Ascendancy, that was the turning point. That was my life-changing day. When I walked into my friend's room, he had the CD case sitting on the ground. He was sitting on his bed, playing his guitar, trying to figure out one of these songs I never heard before, and just walked in and was like blown away. I could not believe what I was hearing. Matt's vocals, the choruses he freaking sang out with his cleans, his guitar playing was just all over. The rhythms that he came up with, it just blew my mind. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. 2006 was kind of easy as well, just because I can't pick Underoath to Find the Great Line, because I already did that, which again is a masterpiece album. And Norma Jean came out with Redeemer, which was really good, but I was having a hard time getting into them at this time. But Killswitch Engage's As Daylight Dies was freaking it. I mean, I listened to End of Heartache and I liked it, but it's just, there wasn't anything that really hooked me. The riffs were fantastic. Vocals, of course, were great, but they're just, it just seemed like they weren't coming into like their prime quite yet. And then when I listened to this album, I gave them another try. And everything about this album, The Arms of Sorrow, My Curse, This Is Absolution, every song on this thing is a banger. And the atmosphere is just so great. Like, This Is Absolution with the clean vocals and the bridge and the chorus and just the message it has. I was hooked. I couldn't stop listening to this song. And then it got like stuck in my head, and it was just an all-around good album. So 2007 was kind of hard because this is where a lot of the current bands were starting to really find their ground. For instance, As I Lie Dying released The Ocean Between Us, which is my favorite As I Lie Dying album. There's also August Burns Red's Messengers, which a lot of people are going to hate me for not picking that album, which is, like I said, sacrifices have to be made. But I got to go with Parkway Drive's Horizons, because this album, the aggression in it, but the beauty in it and the production in it wasn't really all that great, but it just sounded so freaking good. And the melodies in it, Carry On, I spent months trying to figure out how to play that freaking song, and I still played it wrong for forever. I had no clue what I was doing. I was in the wrong tuning. I didn't know anything, but I was just so obsessed with every song on this album. I tried to learn it, couldn't do it. And still to this day, I go back to it and it just puts a smile on my face. And once I hit play on the first song, it's so hard to stop it. I didn't have too hard of a time picking an album for 2008, just because honestly, I didn't really listen to that much music from this time. I didn't really listen to anything new. I was pretty much still hooked on all the stuff I'd already been listening to. The Ghost in Signs, Fury, and the Fallen Ones was an absolute banger. I was in love with that album. Unearth came out with The March, which I was kind of having a hard time getting into that one. Destroy the Runner, I, Lucifer, solid album. Listen to that one a lot. I still listen to that one today, in fact. But the one that got me was Haste the Day's Dreamer. This is when I liked this band, but they just hadn't really produced anything that made me fall in love with them. And I believe this is the time when they got a new vocalist, and like their riffs in this are so heavy and they're so groovy, yet so freaking simple. And the vocals were fantastic. And this is when like I listen to this album and I try and go back and I try and go through their discography, and I have a really hard time liking anything else they've done nearly as much as this album. The answer for 2009 was, it was very obvious once I started going through it. The Devil Wears Prada with Roots Above and Branches Below was a fantastic album. It was very hard not to pick for my album. Also, We Came as Romans to Plant a Scene was another fantastic album. I didn't get into that one until a little bit later. I didn't discover this band until a while after either. Oh Sleeper came out with a phenomenal album as well. But when I was going through it, the answer is so simple. It's probably the best album of this year, arguably, again, just like Ascendancy. August Burns Red's Constellations. That's the only answer for 2009. And that's the only reason why I didn't pick Messengers, is because I like Constellations more. Messengers is definitely a lot heavier, and Constellations, they brought like a little bit more thrash, a little bit more melody. And Messengers like pushed them and kind of put them in the spotlight a little bit and made them known. But Constellations like really showed like that they were here to stay, and it showed what they can do, and it just showed that they were going to be consistent, which they have been. Every song on this album is an absolute banger. I mean, there's Meddler, Existence, Ocean of Apathy, Mariana's Trench, Whitewashed, every song. You can go through every single song on this album, and it's basically a 10 out of 10 album. This took me quite a long time to do, just because the decisions I had to make were very hard. But if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know if you want to see more stuff like this. I can even go through, like, in earlier years, I could do like deathcore, power metal, death metal. I could do basically whatever. I've listened to a lot of music, and I've been around for a little while, so I listen to old stuff and I've listened to new stuff. So if you have a suggestion for like a future kind of thing you want me to do for this segment, deathcore, like maybe even just 2010 deathcore, or I can even mix it up and do what I think are the best albums. Like I said before, this is not like a ranking list of the best albums of these years. It is just specifically what albums influenced me the most. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. Leave a comment below letting me know what I should review next. If you want to see more of my videos and you just want to help support my channel, please don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell icon. Doing any of those things, it just helps me out more than you guys could ever imagine. And I appreciate it just so much. And I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day or night, whenever you happen to be watching this. And I'll talk to you guys next time.
I was trapped in ignorant, kid relying on